In the heart of an ancient world, a valley like a fortress, a sanctuary whose very walls held a hidden promise of ruin. Life for the clan followed a familiar rhythm, the peace of routine, a primal shield against the chaos of their world. High above, a stone sentinel waited. A million years of wind and rain had slowly carved a weapon of gravity. The river, a source of life, provided a bounty of fruit and roots. Their world, for now, was a generous one, but the mud held stories of other visitors. A track from a hunter not of their clan and not of their kind. A successful hunt brought celebration. The taste of meat, a temporary victory in the endless war against hunger. The wind began to whisper a new song. A subtle shift in the air, a warning of the sky's changing mood. Sheltered by their fire, they did not hear the mountain shedding its skin, a prelude to the coming storm. But the elder felt it, a deep unease, a lifetime of survival screaming that the world's rhythm was wrong. They slept in a precarious peace, unaware that the dangers they had yet to face were already in motion. The new day brought no comfort. The wind had died, leaving a heavy, expectant stillness in the air, and within the clan, a new danger took root. A fever that no tool could fight, a weakness from within. Drawn by a need to understand the previous day's omen, they returned to the river's edge. The tracks were fresher now, more numerous. The visitor was not just passing through, it had made the valley its own. Then, a horrifying discovery. One of the valley's ancient kings, the cave lion, lay dead.
The leader understood. The new predator did not follow the old rules. It hunted the hunters.
The sky itself seemed to confirm their dread, its calm breaking into a low, mournful rumble of distant thunder. Fear now propelled them. The shelter, once a home, was now a refuge they had to reach before the world broke. The first drops of rain began to fall, seeping into the mountain's ancient cracks, lubricating the agents of its decay.
Trapped, with sickness within, a monster without, and the fury of the storm now unleashed upon them.
Trapped by the storm, they huddled in their ancient shelter, believing its stone walls were absolute.
But the storm's true weapon was not its wind or lightning, but its patient, relentless water. Water, the giver of life, now became a force of destruction, eroding the very foundations of their world. A groan from the mountain, a sound of a world coming apart, a warning they could not comprehend. For centuries, the great stone had held its peace. Now, loosened by the flood, its long wait was over. With a final, terrible crack, the mountain's weapon was unleashed, a force beyond any predator's power. It fell like a vengeful god, a tumbling harbinger of chaos, aimed at the heart of their sanctuary. In an instant of thunderous destruction, their fortress, their home for generations, was annihilated. The fire was extinguished. The entrance was gone. The darkness that fell was absolute and terrifying. Their sanctuary had become a prison of rock and dust, buried alive, at the mercy of the raging storm. In a world without light, the only senses that remained were sound and terror. They were buried alive.
Their greatest ally, the flame, was dead. Without it, they were just another species, blind in the dark.
In the chaos, the leader's voice cut through the panic. A call to order. A refusal to surrender to the darkness.
The dust-choked air was a poison to the weak, turning their prison into a race against time.
He moved towards the entrance, his hands searching for a way out, for a sign that they were not entombed.
His hands found only cold, unmoving stone, a wall of impossible weight, sealing them from the living world. As despair threatened to take hold, the elder's voice offered a memory, a forgotten piece of knowledge.
A back way. A narrow crack in the stone. A path for the desperate. A tiny flaw in their perfect prison.
They crawled through the wreckage of their home, a blind pilgrimage towards a single, desperate hope.
A glimmer of light. A breath of air. The escape route was real.
The only way out was up. A vertical crawl space, a birth canal back into the violent world. In the suffocating darkness, every handhold was a guess, every foothold a prayer against the slick, wet stone. He emerged from the darkness of the earth into the fury of the sky. A refugee in his own home.
A single call of encouragement. A sound of hope that echoed down into the tomb they were leaving behind.
The mother climbed for two, her precious cargo a fragile weight, her every move a battle against gravity and fear. Their survival depended not on individual strength, but on the chain of hands that refused to let another fall.
One by one, they escaped their prison of rock, only to find themselves in a new one, made of wind and water.
The full fury of the storm hit them, a relentless assault, threatening to peel them from the mountain's face.
And in flash of lightning, a new horror was revealed. Trapped, high above the ground, with the storm at their backs and a pack of killers waiting for them below.
From a prison of rock to a prison of air, their escape had led them to a far more terrifying trap. The wolves were intelligent hunters. They did not waste energy on an impossible climb. They simply had to wait.
The storm was a relentless enemy, stealing their warmth and preying on the weakest among them.
Every direction led to a sheer drop. Their world had shrunk to a single, treacherous, windswept ledge.
The hours passed, each one a lifetime. A battle against the cold, the wind, and the creeping despair.
To lose consciousness was to lose your grip. To sleep was to fall into the waiting jaws below.
The wolves were untroubled by the storm. For them, this was just another night, another patient hunt.
Their howl, a language of doom.
A final, futile act of defiance. A single stone thrown against an army, swallowed by the wind and the darkness.
In the face of the storm, the wolves, and sheer exhaustion, the leader's hope finally broke.
In the depths of their despair, a new sound began to grow. A hungry roar not from a throat, but from the river. The storm had given the river its fury. A flash flood, a liquid monster, now came to claim the valley floor. The patient wolves, masters of the land, now found the land itself turning against them. A wall of water and debris, scouring the valley clean with an indiscriminate and terrifying power. Even the greatest predators are humbled by the power of the flood. Their hunt was over. Their siege was broken. They watched as one danger was washed away by another. In this world, survival was a constant trade of terrors. But the flood brought its own violence, its own threat, shaking the foundations of their fragile perch. And in its destruction, the flood offered an unintentional gift, a bridge, forged from chaos and debris.
The spark of hope returned to the leader's eyes. An insane, terrifying, near impossible chance was better than none.
A new path was revealed, not to safety, but to another trial, across a raging river on a splintered trunk. There was no choice. To stay was to perish. Their only path was across the spine of the fallen giant.
The leader went first. A test of the bridge's strength. A single life gambled for the sake of the clan.
Below him, the river's rage. A churning, debris-filled monster, hungry to pull him from his precarious hold.
He reached the other side, a silent signal sent back.
The path is death, but it is a path.
The mother's crossing was a testament to a strength beyond muscle. The fierce, unyielding power of a protector.
The bridge lurches. A violent shudder. A heart-stopping moment where their fate...
Helpless, they could only watch. A reminder that in this world, survival often depended on the courage of one. One by one, they braved the torrent, a chain of fragile lives crawling between the storm and the flood. Just as the last one reached safety, the bridge was torn away. Their escape, a victory measured in seconds. They had crossed, soaked, freezing, and utterly broken. But they were alive. They had endured. As the storm's fury faded, it left behind a cold, quiet, and broken world. The ordeal was not over. Even in utter exhaustion, the leader's instinct drove him. They needed shelter. They needed to escape the cold. They huddled together in the darkness, sharing what little warmth their shivering bodies could produce.
Their losses were counted in the darkness. A precious tool, a lifetime of work, washed away by the flood.
The cold and the water had taken their toll on the weakest. The child's fever now burned brighter than any fire. They had nothing. No fire, no food, no dry place to rest. They were stripped back to their most primal state. The leader looked upon his broken clan, feeling the weight of their loss. They had survived, but what for? But even in the deepest despair, the bond of the clan held true. A simple touch, a promise to endure. The storm was over, but the world was now a far more dangerous place. Their true journey had just begun.
Dawn broke on a changed world. The survivors stirred, not to a home, but to the ruins of their life.
He looked upon his sleeping clan, a fragile remnant. He knew their survival now rested entirely on his shoulders.
He stepped out into the quiet aftermath. The predators were gone, but the world was cold and unforgiving. The first task was to rearm, to find a stone, to shape an edge, to reclaim the first tool of humanity. With cold, stiff hands he worked, each sharp flake a tiny victory against the overwhelming loss they had suffered.
But a tool of stone was not enough. They needed warmth. They needed light. They needed the ghost of the lightning.
He searched for the storm's leavings. A tree, scarred by the sky's fire, might still hold a living heart. And there, a miracle born of knowledge. A glowing ember, a spark of hope, preserved within the wreckage. He carried it like a precious infant, a fragile, smoking promise of a new beginning for his clan.
And with that spark, he brought the sun itself back into their lives. In the darkest cave, there was light.
The fire brought more than light. It brought warmth, a weapon against the cold that had seeped into their very bones. With light came knowledge. The darkness of their new shelter was revealed to be small, but it was safe. Tension turned to the sick. With warmth and the ancient knowledge of plants, the mother fought for her child's life.
With a new tool and a new fire, they ventured out, not as hunters, but as desperate scavengers.
The flood, which had been a terror, had also left a gift. A casualty of the storm became their salvation. To shape a stone, to butcher a kill, these simple acts were a reclamation of their identity, a return to themselves. The smell of cooking meat, a scent they thought they had lost forever. It was the smell of hope returning. The first meal after the disaster. Every morsel, a testament to their will to endure, to refuse to be broken. As night fell again, the leader stood guard. This time, he was not a prisoner, but a gatekeeper. A single, tiny flame. A declaration to the vast, dangerous world. In the quiet of the deep night, the clan found a fragile peace, a brief respite from their ordeal. But the night had other voices, a familiar, chilling howl, a reminder that they were not the only survivors.
The leader's first instinct was to feed the fire, to strengthen the magical wall of light against the returning darkness.
The wolf pack, also displaced by the flood, roamed the changed valley in search of new hunting grounds.
And then, a new scent on the wind. Smoke. A sign as of a creature strange.
Curiosity, mixed with predatory instinct, drew them towards the light, towards the source of the strange smell. The clan, just hours after finding their sanctuary, found themselves besieged once more. Terror returned. The wolves appeared at the edge of the firelight, silent phantoms with hungry, intelligent eyes.
He met their silent threat with a roar of his own, a challenge from his fortress of fire.
The standoff began anew. A tiny cave, a single fire, against the patient, organized hunger of the pack. The standoff became a battle of wills. The wolves' patient hunger against the humans' dwindling fuel. Their greatest weapon was also a hungry mouth, consuming the last of their resources, its own life fading. As the fire weakened, the cold returned, tightening its grip on the sick child. One life faded with the other. The wolves, masters of observation, noticed the change. The fading light was an invitation to advance.
He sacrificed another piece of wood, another few moments of safety, buying time that he knew he did not have. A frantic search for anything that would burn. Their meager possessions now just fuel for the dying flame.
The acrid smoke of burning hide filled the cave, the smell of their desperation, a prayer to the god of fire.
The pack saw not a fortress of fire, but a dying ember. They knew their moment was finally at hand.
And then, the last flame sputtered and died. The darkness and
defenseless, blind, with no fire and no escape. This, finally, was the end of their long struggle. In the final, suffocating moments, death entered the cave, its breath cold, its eyes glowing in the dark. The alpha wolf moved in for the kill, its victory absolute. The long, patient siege was finally over.
A mother's final, terrible calculus, to sacrifice the weakest.
But as the predator closed in, its most powerful sense detected something wrong. A new scent on the air.
Not the scent of healthy, fearful prey, but the alien, acrid scent of disease, the scent of a corrupted life.
The child's weak cough was not a sound of helplessness, but an unconscious warning, a signal of poison. The wolf's primal instinct screamed a single word: danger. An unseen enemy. The hunt is abandoned. The risk of a tainted meal, a sickness that could destroy the pack, was too great.
They retreated from a threat they could not see or fight, an enemy that lurked in the blood and the breath.
And in the darkness, the clan was left alive, saved not by their strength, but by their greatest vulnerability.
Silence. Not the quiet of peace, but the deafening silence of a reprieve they could not comprehend.
He looked out into a world now empty of monsters, trying to understand the miracle that had saved them. There was no celebration, only the deep, shuddering release of a terror so profound it had broken them. She held the source of their salvation, her sick child. A life so fragile, yet a weapon so powerful.
Dawn arrived, a cold gray light on a world washed clean. The night was over, but so was their old life.
In the morning light, they saw themselves for what they were. Survivors. Battered and broken, but survivors nonetheless.
This cave was a tomb, not a home. To stay was to wait for the next danger. They had to move on.
Their first act was to care for the weakest, a testament to the bond that had not been broken. They stepped out into the world as refugees, stripped of their home, their fire, and their certainty. Their struggle was not over. A new journey began, a search not for water or for food, but for a new beginning. They walked without a destination, a ghost clan in a world of mist. Their only guide was a desperate, forward momentum. After the terror came the gnawing emptiness, a hunger that overshadowed even the memory of the wolves. They searched the flood-ravaged earth for anything that might offer sustenance, no matter how meager or bitter.
A patch of hardy ferns. In their old life, a meal of last resort. Now, it was a priceless treasure.
They ate without ceremony, their hunger too profound for gratitude. This was fuel, nothing more.
The child was a fragile anchor, his weakness slowing them, but his life giving them a reason to continue.
The tracks of the great wolves, heading away. A small mercy in a world that had offered none.
The sun returned, not as a friend, but as their old tormentor, replacing the cold misery with a burning one. Before darkness fell again, they had to find shelter, any place to hide from the things that walk the night. Their new home was a thicket of thorns, a painful, temporary fortress for another night of uncertain survival. Sleep was not a refuge, but a shallow, fitful state, easily broken by the endless whispers of the night. And the night had its own hunters, solitary, silent stalkers, who thrived in the darkness the clan now feared.
The leader's senses, honned by a lifetime of peril, screamed a silent warning. They were not alone.
The leopard circled their fragile fortress, a ghost in the shadows, its intelligence matching its lethal power. It tested the walls of their thorny prison, searching for a single flaw, a single path to the prey within. The sound of scraping thorns, a whisper of imminent death. They were trapped, with the hunter at their door.
A sound of territorial anger. The leopard was not just hunting, it was claiming its space from the intruders.
With no fire to protect them, they armed themselves with stone and courage, a pathetic defense against the night's fury. The barrier is breached, the face of the killer, inches away, its eyes burning with a cold, predatory light.
In the final moment, with nothing left to lose, the leader chose to fight, a desperate lunge against death itself.
A desperate blow, not to kill, but to shock. A brief moment of pain, of surprise, was all they could hope for.
The blow landed, not with deadly force, but with the power of surprise, drawing forth a roar of furious, primal rage.
Enraged, the beast recoiled, its fury met by the desperate, concentrated defense of the cornered prey.
This was not the easy kill it had anticipated. These small, weak creatures knew how to fight.
It pulled back, a hunter choosing discretion over a prolonged, difficult, and potentially damaging fight.
The silence that followed was heavy with uncertainty. Was the danger truly gone, or merely paused?
The leader sagged, every muscle aching, every nerve screaming. They had survived, but the cost was immense.
The elder's touch was a silent commendation, but his gaze was practical. The wound in their defense had to be mended.
They worked in the darkness, driven by the memory of the beast's eyes, weaving a new barrier of pain and fear. They had survived the night, but their rest was gone. In this unforgiving world, true peace was a luxury they could not afford. Dawn arrived, but brought no peace. The memory of the night's battle was a fresh, bleeding wound in their minds.
He looked out on a world that offered no safety. This fortress of thorns was a trap, and they could not stay.
The cold and terror had taken a terrible toll. The child's fragile life was now guttering like a weak flame. A mother's gaze, a silent plea that transcended all language, a look that demanded a miracle. Their aimless flight for survival was no longer enough. They now needed a destination. They needed a cure. The elder, the keeper of ancient memories, recalled a legend. A hidden place, a special plant of power. A new quest was born from the ashes of their despair. A desperate race against the fading life of the child. They left their bloody sanctuary behind. The memory of the leopard now and just another scar they would carry.
Their weary march now had a frantic purpose, a direction, driven by the most powerful force of all, hope.
They journeyed towards the misty mountains, an unknown land that held either their salvation or their final doom. They left the plains behind, a world of grass and lions, for a new world of stone and sky. Their bodies were failing, but their purpose drove them onward. Every step, a prayer for the child's fading life.
Each new territory held its own masters, its own dangers. Here, the danger was loud, aggressive, and numerous.
Weakened and outnumbered, they knew a fight was impossible. Survival, this time, was found in submission.
By showing no threat, they offered none. The baboons, their dominance asserted, let the strange creatures pass.
They climbed higher, into a world of cooler air and strange, unfamiliar plants.
The elder searched, his mind racing through ancient lore. Was the story true? Or had he led them here to die? Night falls quickly in the mountains, and with the darkness come new hunters, ones they did not yet know. Shelter was found, a shallow scar in the rock, a temporary haven in a vertical, unforgiving world.
They had reached the mountains of legend, but the child's life was slipping away. A race against the final sunset.
This place. The cold mountain dawn brought with it a profound silence. The child's struggle had nearly ceased, but the elder refused to surrender. He began one last search, a final plea to the mountain for its secret. He climbed to where sky met stone, a place of legend, where the sun's first light worked its magic.
The first ray of sunlight, a golden spear, pointed the way, illuminating a hidden crack in the rock.
And there it was, the flower from the stories, a splash of impossible color. The legend was true. He took only what was needed, a gesture of profound respect for the mountain's gift.
He returned not with a legend, but with a cure, a fragile handful of petals, carrying the weight of a life.
The mother prepared the ancient medicine, her hands moving with the desperate precision of a final prayer. Their entire journey, all their struggle came down to this single, fragile moment of hope.
Now, there was nothing left to do but wait, to watch, and to hope the mountain's magic was strong enough.
They waited, a silent, desperate vigil, as the child's life hung in the balance between the legend and the dawn.
And then, a flicker. A tiny, almost imperceptible movement.
The fever broke, its grip shattered by the mountain's potent magic. The long, dark night in his body was over.
A quiet, profound relief. A wave of emotion too deep for sound, expressed only in the silent language of tears.
He was weak, fragile, but he was alive. Their desperate quest across a hostile world had not been in vain.
But survival was a chain of challenges. With one crisis averted, the leader's mind immediately turned to the next.
They scouted this new, vertical world, a landscape of sheer cliffs and hidden dangers they did not yet know. And then, they found it. A true sanctuary, a deep cave, shielded by a...
For the first time since their world collapsed, they were not just running, but moving towards a home.
With the recovering child in their arms, they journeyed to their new beginning, their hope as clear as the mountain water.
They had arrived. Not just a cave, but a promise. A shelter hidden behind a veil of living water.
It was more than they could have dreamed of. Dry, spacious, and protected by the mountain's own design.
For the first time in a long time, their world was not a threat to be endured, but a wonder to be explored. The first act in their new home was to rekindle their most sacred possession, to give the cave a heart. Here, in the warmth and safety, the weakest could finally heal. The long battle for the child's life was won. This new world was generous. The mountain provided not just a fortress, but a bounty of new life. The hunt was no longer a desperate gamble. Food was plentiful, and their confidence began to return. A sense of peace settled over the clan. The constant, gnawing fear was replaced by the simple joy of a shared meal.
He looked out at the night, but this time he felt no fear. The waterfall was a shield, a song of safety.
Behind the curtain of water, their small light glowed, a symbol of their endurance. They were finally home. Weeks turned into months. The memory of the long walk faded, replaced by the rhythm of a peaceful, prosperous life.
Confidence returned. They began to explore their new mountain home, believing they had finally found a true sanctuary.
But new lands hold new dangers. A strange kill, a sign left by a hunter who did not walk the earth.
In their fortress behind the water, the clan felt untouchable. Their children played, free from the old fears.
A fleeting shadow, a flicker of darkness under a bright sun.
High above, a new power observed them. The silent, undisputed ruler of the mountain skies.
A mother's instinct, a ghost of the old terror. A feeling that even in paradise, eyes are always watching.
The leader studied the sign, a puzzle he could not solve. A new rule in a game he was learning.
The great bird returned to its throne of rock and wind, a silent king looking down upon its vast domain. The clan's small fire, beacon of safety to them, was just a point of interest to a new, lurking danger. In their high fortress, they had forgotten to watch the sky, a fatal oversight in a world where death has wings. The great bird had learned their rhythms, their moments of inattention. It had been waiting for its chance. It fell from the sun, a silent missile of talon and feather, a predator from a world they had never considered.
A single, piercing scream. The ancient.
A frantic scramble for safety. The open ledge, once a playground, was now revealed to be a killing floor. The sound was a hurricane of wind and fury, the beating of wings that could blot out the sun.
Talons of immense power strike the stone. A near miss. A terrifying display of the bird's lethal precision.
Its cry echoes through the mountains.
Huddled in their cave, they stared at the sky with new eyes. Their fortress had a flaw, a fatal weakness. The waterfall, once a shield, was now the bars of a cage. The danger was now in the open air. The attack was over in a heartbeat, but it left behind a terror that would last a lifetime.
The leaders saw their new reality. Their fortress had a ceiling of open sky, and a monster now patrolled it.
The open ledge, once their balcony to the world, was now a forbidden zone. Their sanctuary had become a prison.
Hunger returned. But to find food was to offer themselves as bait to the hunter in the sky.
A new strategy was born of fear and observation. They would move only in the half-light, like creatures of the dusk. They moved with a frantic haste, their eyes not on the ground for tracks, but on the heavens for the winged death. Their world shrank once more. A desperate scramble for the nearest scraps, a race against the rising sun.
The great bird was a creature of the sun and the warm air. The cold, dim light of dawn held it earthbound.
They returned with meager rations, but with their lives. Survival was again measured in the smallest of victories.
The bright sun, once a symbol of safety, was now the mark of the beast. Their world had been inverted.
A new routine of fear took hold. They became creatures of the twilight. Their lives lived in the shadows of the sun. But survival in the shadows was not enough. The gnawing hunger returned, a danger that could not be outrun. The leader watched his enemy. He studied its power, its confidence, its mastery of the sky, searching for a weakness.
Their old weapons were useless against this new foe. The spear, a king on the ground, could not touch the sky.
He searched for a new answer, not in brute strength, but in the properties of the wood itself, in lightness and flexibility.
Innovation is not a single spark, but a process of trial, error, and frustration.
And then, a breakthrough. Not a heavier spear, but a lighter one. A stone tip for killing, and feathers for guidance.
The others saw only a fragile stick. They could not yet comprehend the revolution their leader was holding. The demonstration was a revelation. A spear that flew like a bird, a weapon that could finally reach the sky. A new fire was lit in their eyes. The aggressive fire of the hunter who refuses to be the hunted. The cave was no longer a prison of fear, but a workshop of war. Despair was replaced by the sound of industry. They worked as one, each hand contributing to the new arsenal, forging the weapons that would reclaim their sky.
They practiced in the shadows of their cave, their target a ghost of charcoal, their aim growing truer with each throw.
The leader was a hunter once more, studying the currents and the movements of his aerial foe.
A daring plan was conceived. Not to hide from the monster, but to lure it in. To turn its own hunger against it.
The stage was set. A lone, helpless figure on an empty ledge. The hunters concealed themselves in the rocks, becoming part of the mountain. Silent, stone-faced, and waiting, the rest of the clan vanished, their presence erased. The valley held its breath, a silent accomplice to the trap.
High above, the great bird sees the bait. A seemingly easy meal, an oversight by the creatures below. The predator takes the lure, banking for its attack, flying not towards a meal, but into an ambush.
The winged death descended, its eyes locked on what it believed was a helpless, easy meal. The hunters held their nerve, their fear transformed into a cold, predatory focus. They waited for the signal.
At its moment of greatest confidence, the bird was at its most vulnerable, its attention fixed solely on the kill.
The signal is given. The mountain itself seems to sprout spears. The trap is sprung with a unified cry.
A volley of javelins, the children of ingenuity, are unleashed to reclaim the sky from the tyrant. Caught completely by surprise, the predator had no time to react. The hunter's ambush was perfect. The first spear strikes home. A searing pain, a shocking betrayal from a creature it thought was only prey.
Pain and confusion replaced its predatory focus. Its only instinct now was to escape the hornet's nest it had flown into.
As it struggled, a second volley struck from below. A perfectly executed, two-stage attack. The king of the mountain was broken, a victim of its own hunger and its prey's intelligence. A heavy silence fell over the valley as the sky tyrant finally returned to the earth it had terrorized.
They looked at each other in stunned disbelief. The impossible had been achieved. The monster was dead.
And then, a roar of triumph. Of a people.
They descended from their fortress, moving not with fear, but with the cautious pride of victors.
Even in death, its scale was breathtaking. A magnificent, terrible creature, finally silenced by the small, clever hands of men.
He looked at his fragile weapon, then at the giant it had slain. A new age of power had begun.
Their victory brought more than safety. It brought a bounty unlike any they had ever known. Meat, tools, and trophies.
They worked together, their small tools seeming to disappear into the immense task of claiming their prize.
A single feather. A symbol of their impossible victory. A trophy taken from the king of the sky.
The clan had not just found a home, They had conquered it. The danger had been met and defeated. Victory brought a feeling they had never known: abundance. For the first time, hunger was not a concern. The prize was immense, a mountain of meat that promised security for many weeks to come. But the spoils of victory have their own dangers. The scent of their prize was a summons on the wind.
And from the far corners of the land, the summons was answered. The opportunists, the scavengers, began to arrive.
Drunk on their victory and the promise of a full belly, the clan did not notice the new eyes watching them. They faced a new problem, not of scarcity, but of plenty. How to protect a prize too great to consume.
The night was no longer silent. It was filled with the cackles and cries of a hungry, gathering army.
Safe behind their waterfall, but now prisoners again. Surrounded by the constant, unnerving sound of hunger.
Their peaceful valley had become a battleground for the desperate and the greedy, all drawn to their success. Their greatest triumph had not brought lasting peace. It had simply summoned a new, more persistent kind of monster. Dawn revealed a valley transformed into a charnel house. Their victory feast had invited an army of the hungry.
Their fortress was now their cage, the waterfall a barrier that kept them in, as much as it kept others out.
He watched the new squatters, a persistent, gnawing threat. He knew they would not leave while the feast remained.
The needs of the clan grew. Water, the very thing that defined their new home, was now just out of reach.
And then, a terrible realization. Their great prize, their symbol of abundance, was now a poison, a curse.
A grim strategy was formed. To save their home, they had to destroy their greatest prize.
They waited for the midday heat, when the scavengers were lazy and the sun was their ally.
They emerged not as hunters, but as destroyers. A wall of fire, not to protect, but to cleanse their valley.
The hyenas, surprised by this bold aggression, gave ground.
The act felt like a betrayal of their victory. They set fire to their own bounty, a sacrifice to the god of peace. The carcass became a great, stinking pyre. The smell of their burning wealth, a pungent aroma of sacrifice. They stood guard over the blaze, a clan of arsonists, destroying their own fortune to buy back their freedom. The scavengers watched in frustrated confusion as their unearned prize was consumed by a power they feared. The alpha hyena understood. This valley was not worth the fight. The prey was too strange, too intelligent, too dangerous. The call is made to abandon the feast. A victory for the clan, one with fire and intellect. And so, the last of the monsters departed, driven away not by a greater predator, but by a greater mind.
He watched them go, a profound wariness settling over him. He had won, but the cost of victory was immense.
Strees. The fire burned for a day and a night, a great, cleansing flame, purifying the valley. Dawn broke on a valley of ash and bone. The great prize was gone. They were hungry again, back to the edge of survival. But their home was their own. The peace was real.
They began again, not as they were before, but as something new, reshaped in the fires of their ordeal.
Every hunt was now preceded by caution. They learned to read the land not just for its bounty, but for its betrayals.
The memory of falling rock was now a permanent instinct, a new respect for the mountain's fragile skin.
Their success was now quiet, efficient. The joy of the kill was replaced by the calm satisfaction of competence.
And they learned the most bitter lesson, that too much success could be as dangerous as too little. They began to plan for tomorrow, to preserve their food, to think beyond the hunger of a single day. The children were taught the new rules. The bright, open sky was a thing of beauty, and of danger. Their knowledge, bought with blood and fear, was now their most precious inheritance, passed from hand to hand. They no longer saw the storm as a monster, but as a force to be understood and to be prepared for. Each danger they had faced had left a scar, and each scar had become a lesson in the art of survival. The dawn was no longer a reprieve from terror, but simply a beginning, a promise of a new day to be lived.
The rhythm of their life was now one of quiet confidence, an intricate dance of preparation and caution.
Every member had their role, their purpose, a complex, living machine built for a single purpose, to endure. The health of the clan was the ultimate measure of their success, a testament to the wisdom born from their scars.
They no longer fled from the old dangers. They saw them, understood them, and chose a wiser path.
The fear of the sky was now a simple reflex, a learned response that had become as natural as breathing.
Their new home slowly gave up its secrets. Their knowledge grew, and with it, their mastery of this new world. They took only what they needed, and preserved what they could. They had learned the harsh lesson of tomorrow.
The fire was no longer just a shield, but a hearth, the center of their community, their culture, their story.
They had learned that danger always lurks. And in learning this, they had finally found a lasting peace.
Their past was a ruin, a collapsed cave, a memory of a world that had tried to bury them. A life once on the brink of extinction now burned bright, a testament to the power of a single, desperate quest. Hands that once clung to a cliff face in sheer terror now worked with patience, passing on the secrets of their survival. The fire, once a terrifying miracle of the storm, was now a tame and constant servant, a heart for their home. The monsters of the night were still there, but fear had been replaced by wisdom, panic by prudence. The sky, once a source of unimaginable terror, was now just a roof for their world, its tyrant vanquished.
The memory of thirst had taught them the true meaning of water, and the ingenuity to find it in the stone.
Their scars became their history. Their traumas became their art, a story painted on the walls of time. To leave a mark, a simple, human gesture that says, "We were here, we endured, we overcame." This was the legacy of their ordeal. Not just survival, but the birth of a culture, resilient and unbreakable. Their story was not the only one. Across the ancient world, in every climate, the struggle was the same. For some, the enemy was not a predator, but the cold itself, a world of ice that demanded a constant fire. In other lands, danger wore a different skin, hiding not in the open, but in the suffocating green of the jungle.
Every environment had its own rules, its own monsters, its own unique and terrible ways to die.
Sometimes, the danger was not a living thing, but the earth itself, stirring from a million-year slumber. A power that no spear could conquer, no fire could hold back. A reminder of their true fragility. Even the shores of the great waters, a source of endless bounty, held their own leviathans of the deep. The enemy could be as simple as the sun, and the absence of a single drop of water.
The forms of danger were endless, a chaotic symphony of threats, each playing its own deadly tune.
And yet, in pockets across this violent world, small groups like this one learned, adapted, and endured.
So how did they survive when so many others fell? They had the wisdom of leaders who had seen it all before.
They had the fierce, unbreakable bond of family, a reason to fight, a reason to endure.
They had the strength of the group, the knowledge that the person beside you would not let you fall.
They had a mind that could see a new purpose in a stone, a new weapon in a stick.
They had their stories, A culture that remembered the lessons of the past to protect the future.
They had a community that shared its bounty. Understanding the clan was only as strong as its weakest member.
They had a deep respect for their world, the ability to listen to its whispers and heed its warnings.
And they had resilience. A body that could heal from terrible wounds, and a spirit that could do the same.
Above all, they had a defiant spark, a refusal to be prey, a will to fight back against the darkness. These were the tools that truly mattered, not of stone or fire, but of the spirit, the keys to survival. The first javelin was not an end, but a beginning, the first step on a long road of innovation. The simple chopper would give way to 1,000 different forms, each more perfect than the last. The fire, once a captured miracle, would be tamed, mastered, and put to work in unimaginable ways. The first crude drawing, a whisper of a story that would one day become the grand chorus of human art. The simple shelter of rock would be replaced by walls of their own making, the first villages, the first towns. The knowledge of a single healing flower would grow into a vast library of medicine, of science, of understanding. Fear of the world was slowly replaced by a desire to understand it and to master its forces.
The simple act of teaching would become the foundation of everything. The engine of progress, the chain of knowledge.
They learned not just to survive disasters, but to anticipate them, to build a world that was safer by design. All of it, the entire future of a species, was born here, in the lessons learned by the world itself was a thing of violence, an engine of destruction, and of constant, brutal renewal. But for every destruction, life would find a way. A single green shoot, a defiant answer to the ash.
The predators were not monsters. They were a necessary force, a crucial part of the world's great, bloody engine.
They gave the prey its speed, its caution, its reason to be strong. One could not exist without the other.
The tyrant of the sky was simply the king of its own domain, its shadow a part of the natural order. The storm and the flood were not acts of malice. They were the world breathing, the land reshaping itself. And in their wake, they left behind a new world, a changed landscape, and a future carved from chaos.
Every drop of water held the reflection of the whole. A world of infinite complexity and infinite peril.
And humanity was just one small part of this great, terrible, beautiful web. A single, thinking thread.
The sun sets, the darkness returns. The lurking danger was not an anomaly. It was the rhythm of life itself.
And so, life found its rhythm again. Not a rhythm of fear, but one of purpose, of peace.
The leader, his scars a map of their journey, now stood as a guardian of that hard-won peace.
A new generation was born. Their first sounds not of hardship, but of laughter.
Their skills, once desperate weapons for survival, now became the practiced arts of a confident people. The valley provided all they needed. Their deep understanding had unlocked its hidden generosity. The elders could finally rest, their knowledge passed on, their duty to the future fulfilled. The cave was no longer a shelter, but a home, a library of their history, a cradle for their future. At day's end, they came together, not in fear of the darkness, but in celebration of the light they had made. They were a family, a clan, a culture, a complex web of duties, of love, of shared memory.
And so, we leave them. One small band, on one small cliff.
And what was that lesson? That from a single, fragile spark of resilience, an entire future could be born. That the world was, and always would be, a place of immense, impersonal, and often terrifying power. That mountains would fall and oceans would rise. That nothing was permanent except the struggle itself. And yet, the small, clever apes who learned to work together not only survived, they inherited the earth. They covered it in light, a testament to the spark they nurtured through a million nights of fear.
But even in their modern world of wonders, the lurking dangers never truly vanished. They only changed their form.
The fire, once a tool against the beast, could become the beast itself. The battle for control was never over.
The fight against the unseen enemy in the blood continued, now fought with science instead of a single flower.
But the qualities needed to win were still the same, forged in a time when every sunrise was a victory.
The courage to face the unknown. The intelligence to find a new way. The hope that a better world is possible.
And so the story of humanity began, not in a vacuum, but on a world of breathtaking beauty.
And of unimaginable scale, filled with wonders beyond their wildest comprehension.
Life, in its endless, alien forms, filled every corner of the earth, from the deepest oceans
to the highest, greenest canopies, all following the ancient rhythm of day and night.
It was a world watched over by a universe of silent, indifferent, and beautiful stars.
A world where every moment was a delicate balance of immense power and incredible fragility.
A planet that was never at rest, but was in a constant state of violent and beautiful creation. It was a world of boundless, untamed freedom, of life on an epic, unimaginable scale.
A billion small, beautiful, and terrible stories, playing out in the shadow of giants.
And amongst them all, the story of survival, the greatest story of all, would continue, as it always does. In the end, this is the story of humanity. Not a story of gods, or kings, or of empires. It is the story of a single, fragile flame, cupped in a careful hand, and carried through an endless night. It is the story of a family, a promise made by one generation to the next. We will not be broken.
It is the story of a mark left on a wall, a defiant whisper against the silence of extinction.
The universe is vast and cares nothing for the small, warm lives that flicker within it. The darkness is absolute, and the cold is eternal.
And the danger will always lurk.
But to know this, truly, is not a cause for despair. It is the source of our greatest strength. For it is the struggle against the darkness that forces us to create our own light. Place. And it is that light, however small, that holds the darkness at bay.